1636. Amsterdam. In the hand of a merchant lies a single tulip bulb, the size of a chicken egg. On this day, people are willing to pay for it the same price as a luxury canal house, 12 acres of land, a carriage with a pair of horses, and the annual salary of a fleet admiral, all combined, for one bulb. In 6 months, that very same bulb will be worth nothing. And this is the most famous financial bubble in human history. Act 2. Context: the Dutch Golden Age. To understand how this could even happen, we have to go back to the early 17th century. By the 1630s, the small Dutch Republic was quietly transforming into the richest country in Europe. Without vast armies, without kings or emperors, purely through trade. In 1602, the Dutch East India Company, the VOC, was founded in Amsterdam, the first corporation in the world to issue shares and sell them to ordinary citizens. In the same city, the first stock exchange in history opened its doors, the Amsterdam Beurs. For the first time in history, an ordinary person, a baker, a carpenter, a weaver, could buy a small piece of a ship sailing for spices to Indonesia and receive their share of the profit. A new social class emerged, the bourgeoisie, people who became rich not by birthright but by luck and calculation. They built tall houses along the canals, they commissioned portraits from Rembrandt and Vermeer, and they desperately wanted to invest their money in something new. Act 3. Where the tulip came from. Tulips are not Dutch. They came from the Ottoman Empire, where sultans grew them in the gardens of Istanbul as a symbol of paradise on earth. The first bulbs reached Europe through Venetian merchants in the late 16th century. In 1593, the Flemish botanist Carolus Clusius brought tulips to the Leiden Botanical Garden. He began crossbreeding varieties and discovered something extraordinary. Some bulbs suddenly produced flowers with vivid red and white stripes, with tongues of flame on the petals. At the time, no one knew this was a disease, the mosaic virus. People simply saw a miracle. These rare varieties received ceremonial names: Admiral van der Eyck, Viceroy, and the rarest of them all, Semper Augustus, a white petal with a vivid crimson streak, like blood on snow. By 1630, a single Semper Augustus bulb cost more than an experienced craftsman's annual income. And in the entire country, there were only about 12 such bulbs in existence. Act 4. The madness of the market. And this is where it gets truly interesting. Bulbs stopped being flowers. They became a financial asset. The Dutch invented a new instrument, tulip futures, in Dutch, windhandel, literally, wind trade. In winter, when bulbs slept underground and couldn't even be seen, people signed contracts for the future harvest. And those contracts were resold dozens of times before the bulb ever changed hands in reality. In the taverns of Amsterdam, Haarlem, and Leiden, merchants and craftsmen sat with mugs of beer. In a single evening, the price of one bulb could pass through 5 hands, each time rising higher. Everything was written in chalk on a board, instead of a handshake and a notary. In January 1637, a Semper Augustus bulb cost 5,000 guilders. A month later, 10,000. For comparison, a carpenter's house in Amsterdam cost 300 guilders. The bulb was worth 30 times more than the house. Everyone, from aristocrats to street vendors, was selling livestock, land, family jewels, just to buy a single bulb. Everyone believed prices would rise forever. No one asked questions. Act 5. The peak and the crash. On February 3rd, 1637, another auction was scheduled in Haarlem. The auctioneer raised his hammer, announced the opening price, and suddenly, A silence fell over the hall. No one raised a hand. He cut the price in half. Silence. He cut it again. Silence. Word of the failed auction swept across the country within hours. Riders galloped from Haarlem to Amsterdam and Leiden with the same news. The market has stopped. And then panic began. Everyone wanted to sell at the same time. No one wanted to buy. Prices collapsed 100-fold in a matter of days. By the end of February, thousands of paper contracts were worth nothing. People who only yesterday considered themselves rich woke up bankrupt. In May of the same year, the Dutch government issued a ruling. All Tulip contracts could be cancelled by paying 3.5% of the original price. This saved the country from mass bankruptcies, but it did not save the reputations of those who sold their houses for a bulb. Act 6. The lesson. Why we have repeated this 300 times. Tulip mania is the first documented financial bubble in history, but far from the last. In 1720, London went mad for the shares of the South Sea Company. In 1929, New York collapsed along with the stock exchange and dragged the entire world into the Great Depression. In the year 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. In 2008, the mortgage market collapsed and pulled the global economy down with it. In 2021, meme stocks and cryptocurrencies repeated the very same curve. Sir Isaac Newton himself lost £20,000 on the South Sea bubble, a fortune in his day. And he said a phrase that became legendary. "I can calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of crowds." 387 years have passed since February 1637, and we keep repeating the same story. With tulips, with stocks, with real estate, with crypto. Because bubbles are not about economics. They are about human psychology. About greed, which always says, "This time will be different." And about fear, which always arrives too late.